Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 169.
169. That's crazy. I cannot believe that we've done 169 episodes. And you know what's really cool about this episode? Is we are finally back in the studio together.
That is true.
It's been over 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's like 2.5 weeks since we've actually seen each other face to face. So this is kind of a cool moment.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I like being on the road, but it's kind of nice to go back home. Right. To be centered. And it's funny you say we're at episode 169. Somebody had commented on Instagram that they just started listening to us in mid-May. They went through all 168 and now they don't know what to do. And I'm like, wow, what a compliment, right? But that's 168 hours of PHP Podcast. So we appreciate every single one of you have been listening to the podcast since day one or since yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know whether to thank you or to apologize because that's a lot of us in your ears, but we appreciate that. That's awesome.
So with that all being said, we have a level up. No, we don't have a level up review. I love our organic podcast.
Yeah. What are we calling these hustle?
These were called hustle sessions.
They're just interviews.
But we're not big enough where people are like, hey, did you catch the latest hustle session? You know? So, but anyways, outside of that, we have an amazing guest today. We always like bringing a variety of guests, right? From Amazon to eBay to people that do both to people that are scaling and like living in mansion. Well, we haven't had that yet, but you know, we try to keep it real.
I don't know where everybody lives.
Yeah, that is true. But I always love hearing a different perspective. So our guest today, he's definitely known on Instagram for buying a lot of big items and shipping those out and also being very transparent about his beginnings, where he's at and what he's dealing with. So I am very thrilled to bring on Brandon, flipping $1 on Instagram, onto the podcast. Hey, Brandon, how you doing? Hey, so
I'm wonderful. Happy to be here.
We're pumped. I've been waiting for this, and I'm glad that all the technical stuff is working out so far. So why don't you tell us who you are and what you're about?
Well, my name is Brandon. I have lived in Minnesota within a couple hours of the Twin Cities my whole life. I have been kind of reselling my whole life without really knowing I was reselling my whole life, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
I'm like a chronic saver. And so anytime I could get a good deal on something, in high school, I bought like a wrestling mat, a whole 30 by 30 school size wrestling mat, just because I wanted one for my house. And ended up cutting it up into 9 different sections and selling 8 of those sections. And then that paid for my single section plus so much more. And so I've been kind of doing that on the side my whole life, and I've really enjoyed it.
No, that's awesome. I mean, it's amazing that how many of the people that we interview, I mean, I know I was that way, kind of started when they were in high school. Like the hustle is always there. And like you said, you don't always know what to call it. You might not say like, hey, I'm a reseller, but you're always trying to flip something or find a way to do something. So would you say like high school is when that like really started to show for you, like the whole hustle?
I wanted to be a firefighter. And so like my focus wasn't on business at all. It wasn't anything like it. I wanted nicer things. And the only way that I would justify buying it is if I knew I could sell it back later and either break even or make a little money on it. So
I'm interested about the wrestling mat though. So explain that to me. So number one, you're in high school. What made you think of, I'm going to buy a wrestling mat? Then on top of that, what made you think I'm going to split it? And then who bought it?
Well, wrestling in the Midwest is, pretty big. It's as big as it is anywhere else.
I had 1 year of college of wrestling, believe it or not. I lost every match, but it's all good.
Well, you went further than I did. So I was really into wrestling. I wanted to get better. My idea was if I could get really good at wrestling, I could get college paid for. And that didn't work out. But I found a school wrestling mat on eBay for $1,800. And I knew a guy that was going through Ohio at the time. And he said he would take, I think, like $300 to do it. And at the time, a 10-foot by 10-foot wrestling mat was $500. Huh. And so it's like, wow, for $2,100, I could get 9 sections. That's like $4,500 worth of wrestling mats. And so
who thinks like that at 18 though? Did you think I would never have thought of that. Maybe I'm just behind. Is it just me?
Maybe.
I don't know. All right, sorry. I'm just mesmerized right now. All right, go ahead.
Well, and I had the $2,100 because I hated spending money. And so I was mowing lawns and I was shoveling snow and had a little bit of cash built up, but it was fun.
So who bought it from you?
I got my first split.
Who bought them?
Just wrestling parents in the area.
Okay.
it sold really fast. Like I threw it up on Craigslist and it was gone within a week.
Nice.
So what was your journey from, I mean, I think we've all, when we were younger, had kind of dreams. I had vision, for a long time, like military or police or other things like that. And then my path just totally changed. So what was the kind of trajectory to get you to where you were, to whatever you went through, and then ultimately to reselling?
I mean, I've had a weird path. I went to college. I was thinking I was going for marketing. School was super expensive. The economy crashed in 2008, 2009. And I started kind of a painting business between my freshman and what should have been my sophomore year of college. And I made decent money to the point where I was like, man, I don't know if I want to go super into debt and like continue to go to college. And I found a motel for sale in a town I'd never heard of, 2 hours away. And I put an offer in and I bought it sight unseen.
Wow.
It was cheaper than buying a house, which was my plan of action. And then all of a sudden I owned a motel. So,
whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. So take us through the process, like down payment. Did you have your own cash? Did you have to take a loan? Like, how did you get approved? I mean, there's probably several hoops you had to jump through at that age.
There's a lot of hoops. It ended up being a hard money loan. I was paying 10% interest for like 5 years, which the investor made good money on it. But the motel was only $100,000. So, I mean, you guys live in San Diego. You can't buy a parking spot for $100,000. Right. This was 24 rooms, living quarters, and everything. And so I had that for, I lived on site for 8 years. And then I sold it 3 years ago. But about 4 or 5 years into that, I married my wife. And then I wasn't really reselling at any of that time. I was buying things and reselling them. But again, it was that personal use thing. I bought a jet boat, again, when I was in high school. And that was a great deal. It was a Kawasaki Jetmate. It looks like a bathtub with a joystick. It's a bizarre boat. But I paid about $900 for it. I rented it out for a week for $250 without any insurance. That brought my cost down even further. And then I sold it right before college for $1,650.
Nice.
And I'm still kicking myself because that boat now is worth like $4,000 or $5,000. It's like a crazy collector item. Back to the story. So how I got into reselling was it was more about opportunities. And my wife and I were engaged. We wanted to figure out how are we going to pay for our wedding. And at that time, LED light bulbs just crashed in price. They were like $10, $12 a piece, and then they went down to $2 a piece. And this guy in like a minivan, I'll never forget, whipped into the motel and said, "Do you want free light bulbs?" And I said, "Sure." And so he said, like, the rebate was $8 a light bulb. And so he said, "I'll sell you light bulbs for $8. And so you'll pay me, and then you'll fill out this form, and I'll make it easy for you. And then you'll get a check from, it was either the utility companies or the state of Minnesota, something." And so I did that, and I thought, this is very strange. What's going on here? And I realized that I way overpaid for the light bulbs, but they were free for me. You know, it was just like a weird loophole in the government. And so I thought, all right, well, if he did that to me, I could go to a different hotel and do that to them. And so I did that. And I mean, like in one day we made $6,000. And I thought, this is crazy. Okay. And we incorporated, we did all that. We had an official LLC and everything for about like 3 months before that loophole shut. But that was fun. And so then fast forward a couple years, and my wife she worked at Target corporate, but she quit to come work and live at the motel with me, which is not an upgrade, by the way.
I want to hear more about the motel.
Yeah.
Okay, can we stop there for a moment? Because I'm really intrigued about, like, you buy okay, I'm just imagining, how old were you when you bought this motel?
I just turned 19.
Okay, wow. You just turned 19. Yeah. Okay, now as a 40-year-old, actually as a 41-year-old now, sadness. Just my birthday just passed. But anyways, I understand that like if I bought a motel, I would need a staff to clean, right? I would need to have some kind of security or whatever. I would need to have money reserved, right, for refunds or whatever. I mean, there's so many pieces I don't even know about. I'm sure there's insurance that you need. I'm sure there's, how do you deal with the parking spots? Like there's just so much that goes into it. So how did you manage that at 19?
Just aggressively blind ambition. I really thought highly of myself and thought I can do this. Is a simple business. I can do that. And nothing in this world is really that difficult. I mean, I'm sure getting to Mars is crazy difficult, but I mean, most things you can just Google, and YouTube was around. There was no like motel moguls on YouTube like you guys are for flipping, telling people how to do stuff. But you just learn. The biggest hurdle for me was I was 2 hours away from my friends and my family. So those were my resources. And so, and because, the motel is a 24-hour business, I really never left the property. It was like a little prison for me, which made it difficult to kind of like integrate into the community. But, over time, I built a staff, and it wasn't just me cleaning rooms and checking people in and everything. It's easier than you'd expect, is what I want to say.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine like even with 10% interest, which I mean, that's obviously crazy. It's way more than you'd have to pay on a mortgage or something like that. But the fact that, like you said, $100,000, if you would have bought a house, I don't know what the market was like back then. I mean, the market had just crashed. So it was probably about $100,000, maybe less, $70,000 for a home. But you have this, so you're living there, and then you've got other people literally paying, for your house, for where you're staying. So would you say that it was like super successful? Was it something that you as you were going through, you're like, man, this is like the dream. I'm just pulling in cash.
So I would say the first like 2 or 3 years, it was like, wow, I am doing it. And I got, I don't know if I'd call it luck, but there was a huge hailstorm that hit the motel within 6 months of me purchasing it, a huge hailstorm, which was a huge gift because insurance paid for me to have a brand new roof. And then it filled the motel for 6 months with a bunch of roofing contractors.
Wow.
Huh.
And so I went from like, what am I doing? Why did I buy this thing? To, hey, the rooms are full. And that built up my reserve capital to the point where I never really had to look back after that. So financially, I would say success, but like lifestyle, it was not, it pulled me away from friends and family, and it wasn't the kind of business that I would want to go into again just because of that.
Interesting. Now, would it have been worth it if you would have, let's say, like, I'm going to get a manager who's going to kind of manage this for me, and maybe you still live there, so it's like your house, but it's all being paid for. You got a manager, or were you trying to like run the whole ship yourself?
Well, I had to run the whole ship myself. I tried to do the manager route, and that just didn't work. It didn't bring in enough revenue. With 24 rooms, the 24 rooms in the market we were in, we had a bit of a ceiling about this is as good as this building can get. And that doesn't include a full-time manager with me living off of the property. So, we kind of hit our ceiling.
All right. So now I don't know how much we want to fast forward. You had the hotel until when?
It's complicated.
Okay. All right.
I sold it on a contract for deed. So I'm acting as the bank, essentially.
Okay.
That was 3 years ago.
Okay. So you still own it, is what you're saying.
Kind of. It's complicated.
Okay. All right. So let's rewind a little bit because we got a little bit too fast forward then. So you met your wife.
Yep.
And then the light bulb story happened. And then what happened after the light bulbs? So you had you incorporated and everything. So you incorporated because you were making a decent amount of money from the light bulb business.
And I didn't want to pay sales tax twice on the light bulb.
Okay.
So then there was kind of a 1 year lull, and my wife and I traveled a lot for the first year of our marriage, which was awesome because we couldn't figure out that hotel manager thing. Like, can we make it work? And so that was nice. That was a nice period of time. But then we realized that we can't. We had some turnover with staffing that was needed. So then we were back at the motel, and she still had a lot of friends at Target, and that was when Lily Pulitzer for Target, the big collection
Oh
dropped.
yeah.
Are you guys familiar with that?
I remember those days. I don't think Mike was reselling, but I was reselling during that time. I didn't get into it, but I knew it was too out here. It was insane trying to get your hands on that stuff.
It was insane.
It was crazy.
I lived in a small town where like we were just lucky enough to have a Target.
Well, you're in
Nobody in my
Minnesota.
town.
Like that's Target headquarters, man.
It is, but when you're a couple hours like rural, I mean,
Oh, that's true. So
they don't care about those bright prints of.
So we're talking about Lily Pulitzer. In case you're listening to the podcast, you have no idea what it is. Lily Pulitzer is a designer, and she did a collab, if that's what you call it, with Target. And when this stuff hit the shelves, when was this? Like 2014?
I think it was 15.
2015?
All of 2015.
Oh, that stuff was incredible. Like the flip game on that was insane. All right, go ahead. Tell your story now.
Well, so my wife knew it was going to be huge. And so I was like, all right. I didn't even have an eBay account. And we go into the store and she's seeing on, I don't know if it was Instagram or Facebook at that time, that all of her friends were trying to get stuff lined up in the Twin Cities, and it was all sold out. We walked into ours the next day and it was full. Like no one touched anything. And so we're like, all right. So we maxed out the credit cards. We spent like $3,000 at that store. And I was like, this is crazy. Went home, threw it up on eBay, doubled our money in like 4 days. And I thought, this is insane. But eBay had the seller limits. So we opened up 3 eBay accounts in like 1 day.
Oh, man.
Tried to jump through all those hoops, which I wouldn't recommend. But we were new. We had no idea what we were doing. And then I thought, okay, well, these small towns still have stuff. All right, let me see who I know in Iowa. So I called a friend in Iowa and I said, hey, go to that local Target of like your really small town. And if you buy everything there, drive it up to the motel, I'll pay you $500 in cash above whatever you paid for it. And he's like, oh, done. Awesome. So
Nice.
He made some money and we bought out 3 Targets in rural areas. And yeah, that was my first big reselling thing. And so then I started jumping on YouTube, like, wow, I want to learn more about this. I heard about the subreddit flipping, which I learned a lot from. Watched a lot of Resale Rabbit on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And he started talking about, and I think Rake and Profit back then. So I was kind of watching those 2 guys thinking, wow, these are a couple of really hyper guys, but they know what they're talking about, apparently. So then I did the Goodwill outlets a little bit because I was kind of hooked. And I hated it. I hated it so much. I didn't like the dirty clothing. Just didn't know anything. Didn't really know brands. And so I quit and I didn't resell for a while until I found an auction that kind of changed my life. And this was the Gardening Club of America went out of business. And so it was their bankruptcy auction. And I had heard of Amazon FBA because it's like, you know, I heard of Amazon FBA. I knew that this had a lot of large quantity items, and I knew that this is what was good for Amazon's platform. So I signed up for Amazon and I bought 7,600 of these gardening weeders. And I paid, I think like $4,100. And it's like, all right, I'm going to learn Amazon. And I shipped them in. And the second month, we had gross sales of over $10,000
Nice.
on one item. And I thought, that's insane. I mean, that one deal has still been the best deal I've ever had. We've made over $50,000 in profit on that $4,100 in initial investment. It's just crazy.
That's great. So auction, are you still doing auctions? Is that something that, I mean, if you had that kind of success at an auction, I'd imagine that would be like your go-to.
I've been chasing that high ever since. Yeah, I buy at auctions, but it's super rare to find like brand new case packed, consumer products at an auction like that, especially one that had like it stays around 4,000 rank in lawn and garden on Amazon. So it's just a killer product.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's your current model look like? Okay, so now it's present day. So do you do Amazon and eBay, or do you do other platforms? Are you fast nickel? Are you slow dime? Like how does the, I guess, month to month look like in your reselling business?
So to get to that, I have to almost tell you that, so I've lost my Amazon account twice just because of like buying stuff on the gray market. where you might not have official invoices. So I got kicked off the platform once and then again. And that was right when I was at kind of my peak in terms of monthly sales, when I had just a lot of stuff going on. And
All right, now, when you say gray market, what do you mean by gray market?
A gray market, like if something gets taken by a liquidator and sold by a liquidator, or like I consider retail arbitrage the gray market.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the correct term. I don't know if I'm just.
No, I've heard the term. No, it's used. It's used. We've read news stories that use the term gray market, and they refer retail arbitrage is an interesting one because there's a lot of people that argue on Amazon that receipts work. Then there's others that are like, no, it must be invoices, right? And it depends what influencer you're listening to. And I personally know people that have used receipts and it worked. I also know people that use receipts and it didn't work. It all depends on, I guess, whatever Amazon wants to decide. But my question to you is, so you're at your peak. I want our listeners should listen to this because I always talk about the Amazon dropping the hammer, but I personally have never had the hammer drop on me yet. Oh, hopefully never. So
it's terrifying.
so talk to me about if you're okay, unless you're still traumatized.
Yeah. No, I'm traumatized, but I need to share it.
Okay, so how did that happen the first go around?
So honestly, I don't remember because it's two. So I know.
Is that traumatizing?
I don't remember which order they came in.
Okay.
One of them was someone hijacked the listing for that gardening tool. So it's like the one thing that brought me here was taking me away. They edited it. They edited the pictures. They changed everything on it. And then they filed mine. They put in a claim that mine was not as the description.
So Brandon, how can someone do that? I've always wondered that.
I have no idea.
Okay, because sometimes you know how it is. Like you'll source something and it comes up restricted, but it's restricted on Amazon not because Amazon doesn't allow you to sell it. There's usually like a problem with the keywords or something with the picture, or there's something off. And somehow somebody like a month or so down the road randomly fixes it and you go to scan it and it's now not restricted. And it's because of, so you don't know how somebody edits that, huh?
I have no idea.
Okay. So if somebody in the comments could tell us, I'd like to know.
Yeah. So, I mean, eventually someone fixed it back because the tool that I'm talking about is a brand name. Like you've seen this in stores. It's a popular item, a popular brand. And so, and the pictures that they changed it to was like clearly a private label, didn't look as nice. So someone ended up fixing it, but then I now sell that product on a different account, which we're not going to talk about.
Okay.
But, so that's the one time I got banned. The other time was...
Wait, so you got banned because the listing itself got banned?
Suspended.
Suspended, but because the listing suspended.
Because of that one, for some reason.
Okay.
The other time was... it was like 4 different complaints about inauthentic. One of them, I honestly don't know if it was an authentic item or not, but I was able to get an invoice from my previous supplier.
Oh, man.
And got it through. So because of that, I have tried to spread out my sources of income a little more. And so I've really been focusing on eBay this year. I want to take home as much money on eBay as I do on Amazon.
Nice.
Which I've never done before. So that's the goal.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about, so you got suspended twice. You're still running with Amazon. What are some words of wisdom you would give to someone? Because FBA to me is like the flashy, like, like if you want to be a guru, like you want to be rich, you got to do Amazon. Like, right? And Mike Mike's a good balance to me because Mike's always like, would you just make the same amount doing eBay and not have to go to all these stores or put your account at risk? What are some words of wisdom you give someone who's brand new that says, hey, I really want to do Amazon FBA. There's so much scalability. What would you tell them?
I'd ask them why they're trying to scale, what they're going for. I don't know, because for so long I was just trying to chase those higher gross sales numbers and I didn't really know why when someone would ask me. And now my advice is, hey, figure out what you enjoy doing and just do that. Like if you can figure out a niche inside of reselling that you're good at, that there's opportunity near you and that you enjoy, focus on that. So if it is Amazon, go for it. But you have to enjoy it.
Oh, that's good. And now you said you're kind of trying to shift your model from Amazon to make as much or more on eBay.
Yeah.
What does your process look like for that? How are you sourcing for eBay? What has your experience been on eBay as opposed to Amazon?
Well, eBay, I really didn't care about when my Amazon account was really growing. And so I'm trying to get good habits for eBay, because for Amazon, I've never done merchant fulfilled. I've always done 100% FBA because I'm a pretty messy person. And so it's nice to just like put the inventory in a box and send it away. Where for eBay, my biggest mistakes on eBay is I just lose the items. And that hasn't been good. But so that's something I'm trying to learn. My average selling price on eBay is over 4 times higher than it is on Amazon. And so just because it's like, when I value my time and I try to figure out how much money am I making per hour for every hour of the day that I'm working, I realize that if I'm spending time trying to make $5 or $10 on eBay items, it's probably not worth my time to pack it, list it, ship it, unless it's something that can just go in a poly mailer. And then I'm also in kind of a season of where I'm just trying to learn new niches. I'm trying to do more of what I enjoy, which is learning. And so lately I've been doing a lot of appliance parts. I've been buying like 3-wheelers, trying to figure that stuff out. And I don't know, I like taking on big challenges. Last year I bought Tim Hortons came to Minnesota, and they had like a big conflict with the franchisor up in Canada. And so they closed like 20 locations all at once, and they had only been open for a year. And I ended up buying like 3 or 4 of their drive-through sets, like everything, the headsets, the actual drive-through panels outside, everything but like the sliding window. And what I didn't know then was if it doesn't fit on a 48-inch by 40-inch pallet, it's incredibly expensive to ship. And these things were like 7 feet long. And so that was an adventure on its own. But I don't know where you started this question, but it ended with me saying the length of a drive-through. Then
that's okay. Now
that's awesome. So I was gonna say, so you're and Orlando kind of mentioned right at the beginning of this that you sell a lot of big things. Now it sounds like you're selling a lot of this stuff on eBay. Do you do big things locally too? Or are you using like Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp and those types of things? Or are you like, you know what, this stuff goes on eBay, I don't mind, selling it and shipping it even if it's big?
Yeah, I mean, the big stuff, when I'm sourcing big stuff, I need to make a really good return on it. And generally, because reselling is all about market inefficiencies, right? So if I can get a really, really, really big, I just bought a bunch of mailboxes it was part of University of Wisconsin. They had 25 separate mailboxes that someone had on Facebook bids, had it on Facebook Marketplace for sale for over a year.
Oh, wow.
And I came in and I bought each mailbox for $5. And I threw them up on eBay. And because I'm not afraid to ship it, I've been selling them for between $65 and $85 a piece. Wow. And I only have a few left. So, yeah.
Man, that's crazy. No, that's actually awesome. I mean, I'm really nervous about big things. That's one thing I need to learn a little bit more is the shipping. And like you said, even shipping stuff on pallets and things like that. I tend to ship. I mean, I do what I would consider a bigger item would be all right, I'm sending out a VCR, or a record table or something like that. But I mean, clearly, you're finding success shipping big things. And I think you're right when you say okay, market inefficiencies. And Orlando and I have talked about this in the past of, when you're only selling on Facebook Marketplace or selling on OfferUp, you're reaching a small audience. So you can tend to get better deals because, hey, the person who really wants that item and is willing to pay for what it's worth might be 800 miles away, 600 miles away, whatever it is. But I've always just been a little nervous. Where did you get the experience of shipping big things? Did you just jump right into it? Did you lose some money on shipping?
You just bought a motel, remember?
I just jumped right into it. I had no idea. I don't remember what my first big item was, honestly. I YouTubed, how do I ship something on a pallet? I don't know anyone that works at a warehouse. I just figured it out, man.
Such an entrepreneurial spirit like that.
I don't know.
A lot of people.
I chased the big deals. And I was like, oh man, now I have to figure this out. But the biggest shipping headache I've ever had by far was, and because a year and a half ago, I got a 9-hole mini golf course for free. I just had to ship it. And so I called a courier company and they handled everything for me. And it cost a lot. It was like $500 to have it shipped like 10 miles. But, each piece had to be lifted into the dock truck and it worked out.
It was profitable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And luckily I made them pick it up. So I did local pickup only on an auction.
So what was the profit on that one?
I think I sold it for about $2,500.
Okay.
So, and my cost was just shipping. So I think, with eBay fees, maybe $1,500.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk real quick. So you talk a lot on your Instagram. You're in a rebuilding phase. What do you mean by that? Like, why are you rebuilding?
Yeah. Well, so when I left the motel, I knew I had 3 years because our contract at that point was a 3-year contract. And so it's like, all right, I know that I can make enough money to kind of support me and my wife during these 3 years. Let's see what happens. And we grew a little bit too big, too fast. I took on a lot of debt at 20% interest. Loan sharks love me, by the way. And that includes Visa.
Now, was that debt for capital or debt just to make it?
That was debt it started out as inventory debt. And then when you have your money tied up in inventory and then you get your Amazon payment every 2 weeks, and that money should go towards inventory debt. When you have a lease, at the time I had someone on staff. Life got expensive, and all of a sudden I ended up in quite a bit of debt pretty fast. And then, so then shortly thereafter, sales started to slow down. I got excited when I had the money, so I bought a lot of things that were way longer tail than I expected. And they weren't necessarily bad purchases, but they were bad for the season that my business was in, knowing that I wasn't going to get my money back out right away. And so, we were going from $80,000 a month down to $15,000 a month. Ooh. And we needed to do about $40,000 just to keep the lights on. So that was a struggle. So I had to lay off the employee. I started driving for Amazon Flex, which is like the Uber where you deliver packages. And my wife was 8 months pregnant at the time, which is a wonderful time for that. So fast forward 2 months or 1 month, because kids are born at 9 months. My son was born. He was sick when he was born. And so he was in the NICU for the first week of his life. Mm-hmm. And so everything went on pause. And I ended up moving back home into my parents' house, leaving I was still on the hook for my warehouse lease in the Twin Cities. Got out of our condo lease and basically just had to rebuild from ground up, even though we had minimum debt payments every month of a couple $1,000s. So
wow,
that was a year and a half ago. And we're in a completely different place now, thanks to humbling myself and moving in with my parents, essentially.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's actually, I'm glad you share that because, a lot of times people look at, people who are successful and they almost just imagine that they've had it easy the whole time. There haven't been difficulties, there haven't been setbacks. But when you look at anybody who's really, really successful, oftentimes they have these stories, right? They have the stories of, things went wrong. Maybe it's outside influences, things that kind of come, that impact you. Your son being in the NICU or your child being in the NICU. My son was in the NICU for a week, and I just remember just how devastating and the anxiety that can bring on you. So you got those outside influences, and then you also have mistakes that we make along the way. And then, like you said, to be able to say I need to reevaluate, kind of humble myself and say, going to move in with my parents, going to get this figured out and rebuild. And that I think is what really separates the people who are very successful and the people who ultimately, and success might not even be the right word, but the people who are willing to overcome and willing to push forward, as opposed to those who kind of just wallow and stay where they're at. And then things, kind of get worse and worse. So where would you say you're at now that you can kind of look back and say okay, because you said you're at a different place, a better place. Where are you at now? And where do you see, yourself going? And when this is all going to kind of be behind you, you can kind of look back and laugh.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say thanks to COVID because like it's such a weird.
Yeah, no. We get it.
But I mean, if you sell online at all, March was an insane month, and then the months after have been great. But I have friends that own restaurants and car dealers, just other businesses that are really struggling right now, and so it's weird to be like super excited about what's going on in the world and everything else. But we were in a really good place before that, and then that kind of pushed us to where we are. We only have kind of one big debt left, which put us into a spot where, we don't have to live with my parents anymore. We do. We're in transition now. Hopefully that'll change in the near future here. But yeah, so I mean, that humbling myself has allowed me to truly succeed. I feel more confident in who I am, in terms of like, I don't need the flashy things to show that I'm a success. I'm more thankful and I get to spend more time with my wife and my son than I ever had before. I mean, obviously I've been here the whole time my son's been alive, but when I had the warehouse and I was struggling to make ends meet, I was working, 80 hours a week. And now, I don't work 40. I haven't worked 40 hours in a long time. And we're doing well financially. So
what has been the big jump that's reduced your hours from 80 to 40?
I don't buy good deals anymore. I only buy great deals.
Okay.
And I don't do things that I dislike, which is if it's a great deal, but like there's a nasty sticker on here, I'm going to walk away. I'm not going to spend an hour peeling a sticker on an $8 item. And so that, and then I built relationships with suppliers a little more to where, I really only shop about once a week at most. And then I thrift occasionally, but that's just for fun. So.
Okay, and you're full-time, and is your wife full-time, or does she also work?
No, my wife is in full-time school. So we've been cash flowing school as well. The Dave Ramsey style, which is
nice.
Interesting.
So talk to us a little bit, since we have our level up review with Dave Ramsey's Totally Money Makeover that we've been reviewing. When did you start applying that, and how? And did you go all in like envelopes, or did you? He's already to know. Or so when you say Dave Ramsey, what do you mean? Because it's part of the process. I think people need to learn, because I know we have a lot of our listeners that, to me, even I'll explain for myself. When I read the book, I'm like, this is so crazy. Like envelopes, or like the fact that I have to actually budget fund money, like that's terrible. I don't want to do that. Right. So talk to us a little bit how you got to that process. What did you guys do? Well,
we took the Financial Peace University as part of our premarital counseling, which I highly recommend. But I was too smart for it back then. And it took just a couple mistakes along the way to realize, let's start looking at this stuff. So I agree with most of what he says, to the point where I just don't act like I dispute him. The one big thing is his first thing is you need $1,000 in the bank before you pay down debt. And I just think, he hasn't changed that number since like 1995. You should probably
That's true.
Pop that up. But other than that, I don't know. We tackled debt like crazy. We paid off about $40,000 in the last 12 months.
Wow.
It's been unreal and awesome.
That's good. Okay. So you don't do the envelopes, but you did some of the snowball. You paid off some of the credit cards.
We budget every month. Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a personal budget, and then I budget for the business. And so I have a weekly budget for how much I'm going to spend on inventory, with rollover dollars. So like last week, I didn't spend much money. So I spent like this week's and last week's budget all today.
Nice.
And so what if a great deal though comes along and it's over your budget?
There's always another deal.
Okay.
Always another deal.
That's a tough discipline. One. That is. I get where you're. I mean, there was a point in time I was like, now if there's a deal, I'll make it happen. But I was just watching somebody on Instagram today who they do really well. They're excellent at what they do, but they were saying like, I don't know how I'm gonna come up with the capital to buy this, but I'm gonna make it happen, right? And I feel that there's a divide amongst entrepreneurs. I don't even know if it's entrepreneurs, but I know some people that are like you, and I think I'm kind of like you in a little way that I won't spend an obnoxious amount. Like if I just can't handle it, like I'm not going to do it. And then there's others that are like, this is too good of a deal. I need to make this happen. Right. And so so are you saying that all you've gone through has made you not be that person that I'm going to make it happen no matter what, to I'm going to be disciplined and wait for like delayed gratification for inventory?
Well, I mean, that's how the appliance part started, because, I think I spent, at that point, my weekly budget was $1,000 in inventory, and I wanted to turn 1,000 into 3,000. So I'd spent like $900 so far, and I had like $100 left, and I had time on my hands, because it's like, all right, that stuff is all shipped. What am I going to do? And I found this really bizarre, I'll just call it a dryer, because I don't want to tank the market, because I just bought another one of them. So I bought this really strange dryer. I'd never seen it before. It was like $75, and it took me a couple hours to take it apart, but that I pulled parts off of it, and I made over $1,000 on a single dryer.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, money isn't, because you only have three resources that are limited, right? You have time, you have money, and you have space. And so like time, you can, like if you hire somebody, you are no longer limited by your time if you start hiring people. And money, you can either grow your own, you can borrow, you can do that. And then space, you guys are in San Diego, so you're not buying drive-thrus over there. Right. And so I recognized that, like, hey, I have the space to take apart appliances here. I have the time, because, what else am I going to do? I've already shipped in my inventory for the week. And and I wanted to learn it. So I think when you build parameters around what you're going to do, and then you try to thrive within those parameters, you can it'll knock your socks off what you can do.
Wow, that's interesting. And I'm really interested in the fact that, like, you're buying things, you're taking apart, and you're selling parts. I know a lot of people make a lot of money doing cars and things like that way, where they'll sell individual parts off of it. And I recently, bought a go-kart, and I'm trying to fix it up and flip it. And I know nothing about machinery. I don't know anything about engines.
I don't either.
All of that stuff is just so bizarre. And I can learn those things. I mean, YouTube is great. It doesn't take a lot to learn. But did you grow up tinkering with washers and dryers and that type of stuff? Or were you like, what, I'm going to learn it and figure it out?
I mean, I was always getting dirty. I had a metal collection, but it's a weird thing for a kid to collect. But whenever I'd find something, my favorite show on TV was Junkyard Wars, which was on Discovery way back when. And my dad built hovercrafts. He worked for Universal Hovercraft out of Illinois. He like designed some of their stuff. So he's brilliant and loves like building and taking on crazy projects. And so he's kind of given me the attitude of like, you can do whatever you want, just try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's crazy. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Junkyard Wars. I haven't thought about that show in years, but yeah, that was like a favorite of mine. And
it's a great show.
But it's crazy to think, like, I watch that show all the time. That and what was it, Battle Robots, the Robot Wars or whatever that they would do. And so I love those things, but I just never got my hands dirty and actually tinkered with things. But yeah, there's got to be so much money in that stuff, because I mean, just as it's totally unrelated, but my wife has a pair of nice sunglasses. They're super expensive, and like the earpiece came off, and so she was looking at buying new sunglasses, and I'm like, why don't you just see if you can find like the little earpiece for it? And so we're trying to figure out, what are these things called? How do you find the right model? And you can find people on eBay selling, just those pieces for $30, $40. And I'm thinking, how many people are throwing away sunglasses? You can go pick up a pair of trash sunglasses. The lenses are ruined, but you can still make money off it because you're parting out pieces that people do need.
I did not know that niche existed. That's fascinating.
Right?
We're going to edit this from the podcast.
We're all just going to dive in on sunglass parts.
All right. So, and this is the last time I'll go back into your trauma or your learning lessons. So what are some takeaways from all of that? Because, obviously now you look back, you've matured in your business and you understand things more. So you said you only go for great deals now. You only go for good and not good deals. you budget like your inventory, like the capital that you're going to spend. Are there any other things that you would do different?
It took me too long to sign up for Inventory Lab.
Okay.
And that was a game changer for me when it came to like tax return time and even the reports that you can run within Inventory Lab where you can say supplier profitability, item profitability, and just basically really diving into the data and figuring out, hey, where am I making money? Where am I wasting money? Where am I wasting time? And then just like the Pareto principle, just focus on the 20% that's giving you the 80% of the results.
Right.
And so I wish I did that earlier, but I've learned a lot of things along the way that I can say no to.
Okay. So for our listeners that don't know what Inventory Lab is a software for Amazon where it gives you all kinds of reports. So it'll tell you, you put in what a cost was for an item, and it'll tell you what the net profit is based on the price of the market. And it also, you can determine, it'll tell you like where you can put in where you bought items, and then you can see, okay, where should I source again? I mean, there's so many reports, and I'm with you. Like I didn't do Inventory Lab until probably my 9th year in Amazon.
Wow.
And actually this last month I've done 0. So I started doing it last year, and it was great. It was great. But now I have some items I've been picking up that I don't even need to look at. I'm going to make money. And so I haven't even used Inventory Lab. I've just been, should I admit that I've been commingling my products? I don't know. A lot of people give me flack about that, but if you don't know what that means,
you're fine by me.
All right. If you don't know what that means, so on Amazon, you're allowed sometimes to ship things into the FBA warehouse without printing a label for it. You just use the manufacturer's barcode. The danger with that is if you get an inauthentic claim, or if, they're going to ship whatever pops up. So it may not be yours that you shipped in. It might be somebody else's. And that's where the problem lies, where if you have labels, it's only going to be the one that's connected to your label. And so a lot of, when we got on Instagram, I got so many people that were like, Orlando, what are you doing? You're commingling. Like, don't do that. And I haven't commingled in a while, but this last time, the velocity of sales, I was like, I got to ship things out as fast as possible, so I'm not going to label. And I'm sure I'm going to get some comments in the YouTube for that, but it is what it is. So I wanted everybody to know what Inventory Lab is in case you're lost. I think it's a great software program. You just got to find if it works for you, but I would say it works for 99% of people. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
And there might be a better software out there, but I like what I have going on. And so I have no reason to leave.
Okay. So now what's your week look like now? So you're saying 40 hours. What's it look like now that you're full time? How do you, some people are looking for a day to day. Are you a day to day guy, or you're like whatever comes across?
No, I need to work on that. Starting this fall with, the next semester starting for my wife in school. I will be working Mondays and Tuesdays all day, and then half day Wednesday, and then maybe a half day on Fridays. And so one of those days I'll do like a full day of buying, and then the other days will be shipping and listing and liking pictures of Pure Hustle Podcast on Instagram.
Nice.
Appreciate that. So
that's good. So what is I want to hear more about your journey into eBay. So you say you do some thrifting, kind of for fun, for yourself type of a thing. What are you doing now to kind of shift more and more of your business over to eBay? Is your sourcing through vendors, or are you trying to do more sourcing through retail arbitrage for eBay, or for garage sales, thrift stores, that type of thing?
Yeah, I don't really sell consumer products on eBay. I do a little bit, but I do a lot of tools, restaurant equipment, that kind of stuff that I can buy in auction. Mostly weird stuff that I've like never seen before and looked up and thought, that's strange. It's got to be worth something, and sometimes it is. And I'll throw it up there.
You are a modern day treasure hunter. Like
I love it.
You do. I couldn't do what you do. I couldn't just randomly buy stuff I didn't know. Like there was a period I could, and now I just, oh man, you like the discovery part is what you're saying.
I do. It brings me joy because I get to learn about something new, and it's like, whoa. Like this last week, I didn't end up buying any of it, but I spent a few hours researching like advanced paint mixers because Sherwin-Williams was closing one of their distribution centers. And so it's like, all right, how does this work? Is this worth anything? And it turns out when it's like a massive industrial paint mixer, there's not a lot of buyers.
Right.
So didn't buy any. But
so how did you find that out? Was it a simple sell-through rate number on eBay, or
well, a lot of that stuff doesn't sell on eBay. A lot of it sells on like I think it's Machinery Trader, or there's a really big one out of Evansville, Indiana that I've tried to sell some big stuff on before. I had a pallet inverter last year that was a big loss.
Tell a story about that. What's a pallet inverter?
So I was on Craigslist, and a company, it's hard to explain. It lifts a pallet in the air and it turns it 180 degrees and then it sets it back down on its top. And so it's used in applications of like print shops. This company, it was a publicly traded company that made gift cards. And so I had to sign like a ton of non-disclosures. So it was free on Craigslist. And so I went there and I show up. And the guy said, hey, you need a professional rigging company to remove this because you need to have insurance because we're a real company. And I said, man, okay. So I called the rigging company and I got a quote for $2,700 to remove it. And so it's like, whoa, this free thing on Craigslist that I think is worth $15,000 is now costing me $2,700. And so I went home and I thought about it for a while. And then I called the company that was trying to get rid of it. And I said, hey, I'll take it from you, but you're going to have to pay me $2,700. And they wrote me a check.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. So I got it for free.
That's a hustle right there.
It's a hustle.
That is awesome.
It would have been better if they said no and I walked away because I ended up paying $150 a month in storage.
But you must have felt really good though when they're like, sure, we'll write you a check, and you get a check and you're like, what do I do now?
I should have asked for $5. Oh, they were so quick to say yes. Anyway, so I paid 6 months of storage, ended up giving up on it, called a local auctioneer to auction it off. It sold for like $100, which was less than the auction fees. So I walked away from it, and I had it listed on this big Machinery Trader website. And I get a call not even a month ago. Someone was interested in it at like the $10,000 price. And so it's like, man, if I just held out a little longer and paid that $150 a month.
Oh, that's rough. Could you have, as soon as you got it on the rig, could you have taken it to like a scrap metal place and like recycled it and made some money off of it? So they would have paid for you to just ship it there?
The cost to bring it to the scrap yard is more than what it was worth in scrap.
Wow.
They're about the same. I bet you scrap is way down. I don't even know what it is per ton right now, but this thing weighed, at least 6,000-7,000 pounds.
Wow.
But to bring it to the scrapyard would have cost at least $600-700. So I think I would have been in the hole on that.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's a wild story. Now, I'm interested. I'm really intrigued. So you're saying that there are different sites outside of the normal things we think about, like eBay and so on, to sell big machinery.
Yeah.
How do those? I feel like I'm a 5-year-old asking you these questions. How do those work? Is it like you list it and there's pictures? I mean, can you look at comps on there? Like, what's that look like? And what are they?
You're just going to have to Google,
okay. Ooh, the Google on me. Okay.
And then, because Machinery Trader is like a big general one, but then there's a lot of specific websites for different.
Oh, okay. So is it kind of like I bring it down to a level I understand? So there's Reverb, which is it's for instruments, right? So like a lot of people sell, bass guitars or amplifiers on Reverb. It's like eBay, but it's not. But it specializes in music. Is that what kind of how this works?
Exactly. Yeah, because if someone's buying it from this website, they're going to assume that the people actually know more about the item than if like some random guy like me who usually sells, dirty old shoes on eBay.
So you need to be ready to answer questions
where it's like $20 item, $20 item, $20 item, $15,000 pallet inverter.
Right.
I'm not going to get calls like, hey, how old is the motor on the third wheel? And it's like, I don't know anything about it. So I use this brokerage firm that appraises the machinery and everything, but it didn't work out. That's okay.
And that's crazy. I mean, you've taken some really big risks. I mean, obviously some of them pay off, some of them don't. But I'm interested because you went from, like you kind of said, like almost like a blind ambition. You wanted to go for it. You did something huge. Looking back at like even the motel and, the headache of that, but the success of that and all of those things. So where do you see yourself going from here? Like you're at a place where you're rebuilding, you're finally in, you've Dave Ramsey'd your way out of a lot of stuff. You're cash flowing your wife through college. So what does like the next 5 years look like? What are you hoping for? Are you hoping like another warehouse, another motel, another growing, or are you kind of happy just kind of keeping it smaller?
I'm super open. I mean, it really depends on what opportunities will arise. And there's a lot of opportunities coming through the pipeline because of what's going on in the economy right now. And so the only thing I don't want right now is a small motel or a gas station, mostly because the gas stations in this area, like it's Quick Trip or it's nothing. Those guys run this town. So I don't know what's going to happen next. I'd like to buy one piece of real estate a year for the next 10 years.
Wow.
It's kind of a thought in the back of my head. Yeah. And then just having, I had really big goals when I was 19 and just bought a motel. I was thinking like, wow, Minnesota Twins in probably 20 years or so, and then the Vikings 5 years after that. We'll see. But, now my goals aren't really there. My goals are more about like, hey, 10 years from now, I'm going to have a kid in middle school, hopefully a couple of kids in elementary. How can I spend the most time with them? And so what can I do now that puts me in the best position to be incredibly available from now and then from then beyond? Because I don't know how long I can sell on Amazon. I don't know, what markets shift on eBay. I don't know. And so by taking more money off the table and putting it into like long-term investments, I feel like that sets me up super well for the rest of my 30s and then into my 40s and beyond.
Nice.
All right. So I have some specific questions for you. It's like technical, procedural. So at one time on Instagram, you had mentioned about, so here the big deal for us is like, I'm not going to get a warehouse because the cost of overhead for a warehouse in California is just obnoxious. But you had mentioned something at one point that there are certain places where you can rent a portion or like a pallet of a warehouse.
Yeah, that's available nationwide.
So tell me a little bit about that. I'm interested.
I just talked to one of my advisors yesterday. I'm building up kind of people that are further along in the industry that actually want to give me time, which is fun. But anyways, he does it. I've never done it. But the place that I priced out locally, they charge $7.50 per month per pallet, and then an inbound fee and an outbound fee. And so when you couple that with having like a decent relationship with like a courier service, which, do the dock and liftgate stuff.
Okay, explain that. Explain the truck at Macy's the other day. What was that?
Oh, that was just an LTL shipment. I live on a hill, and that was just an Amazon LTL shipment. And he just refuses to back up. Some LTL drivers are just cowboys, and they'll block traffic and they'll whip through neighborhoods.
So when you say LTL, we have a lot of listeners that have no idea what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but what do you mean by LTL?
So LTL just means that they deliver, it's not the full truckload at once. They do several stops and they'll do a pallet or two at a time.
Okay.
So usually anything less than like 6 pallets is sent LTL. That's usually kind of the break-even point.
Yeah, and that's when you send it to Amazon. A lot of people you see on Instagram just send the boxes, but there's a point where you can send LTL pallets if you have a lot of inventory, and actually it's super cheap because it's like cents per pound. And so it's worth it. Actually, I should have done LTL when I was in Colorado, but I was in a hotel room. It would have been kind of crowded. Like it wouldn't have worked out. But when you're sending out 13 boxes, that's pallet worthy. I mean, I sent out 2 pallets, and I probably would have had more profit had I done it that way. So that's good. Okay, going back. So these spaces, you just look it up. What are they called? Where do you?
I think you can just Google like warehousing services, and then just make some calls. But for me, and what I'm like going towards with that is, we talked about it earlier, how we have limitations of space and time. And I have a lot of space here because I'm at my parents' house and it's great. But all great things come to an end. I can't say my wife loves living here, which is to be expected.
This is gonna air, right? Right?
It is common knowledge.
Okay, all right. Just throw it out there.
Anyways, so at $7.50 a month, I have to figure out how, what does a warehouse cost in my area, and what does it cost to insure a warehouse employee, or am I going to do all the work? Where if I can basically underwrite my deals to where, hey, this might not sell for a year, is it worth storing for $90 and then picking it up a year from now? Is that worthwhile? So I think that's the math that you have to do to make this stuff worthwhile.
Okay, that leads into my next question then. So my next question is, so I've been on this road of holding items and later on sending them to Amazon. I personally myself, I failed at it. I couldn't do it. There were so many times I tried to predict the market and go, hey, 6 months from now, this is going to go up in price. Those of you that have followed Pure Hustle podcast from the beginning, you saw a lot of that probably in month 3 or 4 where I was sourcing for Q4 and I'm like, hey, when Christmas hits, this is going to go way up. And I was right 60% of the time, but there was 40% of the goods that I just ended up selling at a break-even point or at a loss. So explain to me, how do you make sure that doesn't happen?
I just buy it right.
Okay.
Our cost of goods sold on Amazon is less than 15%.
Okay.
And, when you're paying pennies on the dollar, I can let it sit for a long, long time and be fine with it. And I do end up throwing some of it away. But, when your break even is so easy to hit, and that's why I need that 15%, to be paying the 15%, because it covers all of my mistakes, right? It allows me to donate a ton of stuff hey, this didn't work out. Let's go to Goodwill. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. So the key way not to lose a ton of money is have a low price point. Then it doesn't matter how long you hold it.
It's almost like you're saying buy low, sell high.
Well, yeah, okay, I know, but
yeah,
but it's at and I get it. I mean, that's right now and this interview isn't about me, but I will only sell stuff on Amazon that I'm gonna get my money back in a month. I did that game for a while and it didn't work out for me, but I wasn't doing the low price points like you're doing, 15%, that's amazing. I could see myself holding on to stuff. I would make it happen. You know what I mean? It'd be worth it to me. And yeah, it's okay. It's like a big bulk buy for eBay. You buy a lot of stuff on eBay. It's okay if you're going to have to trash maybe 25% of it because the rest of it's going to bring you good profit. So totally get that. Okay. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So you already talked about successes and failures, but give us a couple top tier successes that you had and your low points, your things that you wish you never did in reselling. Now you shared some of them, but do you have any more you'd like to share?
Well, as far as low points, which I find more fun to talk about, right after I bought that garden tool, I thought I was, playing with a hot hand. And so I found a lady on Craigslist that was selling her self-published book. She had 1,500 copies. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity.
Oh, man.
And so I met her in a Trader Joe's parking lot and I gave her $3,000 in cash.
You made her day.
I made her day. She cleaned up. I thought $2 each and I can sell them for 15. So that was 5 years ago and I've sold 60 copies in 5 years.
Oh, gosh.
So
yeah, you almost have to become her marketer, her publisher at that point, trying to advertise her book to help her to sell your product.
Well, and I know where she lives and I almost want to drive over and say, hey, could you sign a couple of these? Let's see if we can, push this over a little bit.
That's funny.
But, so that was a loss. And I think that was good because it was the yin and the yang of I had a massive win. And then the very second product I ever bought was just a dog. And then after that, I bought a few hundred of these, as seen on TV. They were store returned. It was a toucan I'd seen on TV can opener, and I sold them as new. I didn't realize they were store returns because I was new to the business, and that just destroyed my feedback on Amazon. So I had to dig out of a hole for a while there, but it taught me a valuable lesson.
How did you recover from that?
I just sell more stuff.
All right.
You know,
It's a numbers game, right?
You didn't try to use a feedback program or a third party? You know what
that
I'm
would have
talking
been
about?
wise. I'm sure that would have been wise.
Okay.
I mean, I was selling junk. I deserved every negative feedback I received, and you just got to learn from it. But so a high point was I got two. One I kind of want to share. I'll share both. So these chemical mixers. A guy was selling 200 chemical mixers out of his college apartment right outside of the University of Minnesota. He had 11 pallets of these in his garage, and I showed up in a U-Haul, and I said, "What are you doing with all these things? Like, how'd you get them?" And he said that his roommate worked on at some chemical company and found this price error, so he got them for a penny each.
Oh,
and he sold them for $5 each, thinking he was just killing it. And I have sold 30 of them so far, maybe 40 at this point, for a little over $200 a piece.
Wow,
that's been a huge point. But it takes up a lot of space. So I still have, several pallets left of that. So that was a big one. And then I found these chemical 3-packs. I'm going to be super vague, but a 3-pack of these chemicals, I was buying them for $2 for a while. It went up to $5. I was the only seller on Amazon. There was no active listing. There was a dormant listing on Amazon when I found it. And so I just bought a couple and tested the market. And I paid $5 for the 3-pack. I sold one chemical, started at $19.99. It sold like hotcakes. I bumped it up to $38. And I sold through 800 of those units in 2 months.
Incredible.
And there was 2 other chemicals because it was a variety pack. And so I'm going to be I sell about one of those a day now. So they're not as popular as the other one, and those are moving at about 20.
Wow.
So that was the best find of my last year, was that 3-pack of chemicals.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
There's no competition.
Isn't that great? I always feel like you said earlier, there's always another deal. Sometimes, I get a really good deal on something in my, experience. I've had some board game deals. I've had some good Department 56. Recently, I've sold a lot of RPG books, and you get one of those deals and it kind of carries you for a while, right? Those are where you're pulling in all your money, and then you're thinking how am I going to ever top this? But then, like you said, all it takes is 1 or 2 of those a year, right? You don't have to be getting those every single day, but sometimes we get that pressure on ourselves. I need to find another one of these today as I'm looking on, I'm trying to source and find items. But, if you get a deal like that, once every year or two, it kind of carries you, and then you find the smaller deals that kind of keep it going on top. But man, that's crazy. I mean, the volume you were able to do there, the fact that you were able to break it up. And I think that's one thing a lot of people don't think about too, is just the fact that you can split things. I mean, I went to a swap meet and a lady was selling, I don't know, some kind of chemical too. It was like a fertilizer thing. And it was a multi-pack, 10 of them in a box. And each one was selling for more than she was selling the boxes for, right? So those deals are out there. You can find them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a thrill. I absolutely love it. It's what makes this business fun for me.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, do you have your question?
Yeah. So I always ask our guests, and we don't put this on the questions that we send out. So putting you on the spot a little bit here, but so with everything you've been through in your life, you've had some ups, some downs, lots of experience. You've learned a ton. If you had the ability to offer advice, a piece of life advice to somebody's come to you, maybe a young teenager comes to you and says hey, what if I want to do better in life? What should I do? If you can have a phrase or a motto that you live by that you would want to pass on to somebody, what would it be?
Man, I don't want to lean too much into Dave Ramsey, but I think if you can live below your means and just do more things that give you energy, just spend time doing things you love that also pays you, you're going to have a great life.
No, it's true. Good. So we say we preach that all the time, right? The fact that you don't have to make 6 figures to feel like you're living like you have 6 figures. I mean, 6 figures are nice, don't get me wrong, but you can be wealthy as long as you live below your means. Like you can just, that's great, Brandon. No, I appreciate you sharing that. All right. Where do you see reselling now in the next few years? Are you on the hype train like everybody else? Like it's going to be the most amazing, glorious next 10 years? Or you're like, it's going to be the same. Where are you landing here?
I think it's going to continue to shift like it has. I am bearish on wholesale on Amazon. I feel like new products on Amazon, it'll be harder and harder to make money because it's so like YouTube has made everything so accessible and people can learn how to sell on Amazon easily. Some of my top sources a couple of years ago now sell on Amazon directly. And so I just feel like the supply chain is just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter as it's easier for a liquidator to bring the products to market. So I think that's going to happen. I feel like used stuff, vintage will never go away. There's companies that are always going to be liquidating and needing to move stuff. There'll always be inefficiencies in the market. And there's always opportunity. It might not always be retail arbitrage, Amazon, FBA. It might not always be appliance parts on eBay, but there's always going to be something out there. And you just got to stay up with it.
That's good stuff. That's solid advice. All right. Well, hey, Brandon, thanks so much for being on the podcast. So to follow you, where does everybody have to follow you again?
Flipping a Dollar on Instagram.
Okay. That's and no YouTube yet?
I just don't like to edit videos.
No, we get it. We're a podcast. We get it. We drop things every once in a while, but we get it. So, all right. Hey, give Brandon a follow on Flipping a Dollar. You won't regret it. Great stories, a lot of great information, and he's real about it. So thank you, Brandon, for being on the podcast. Really appreciate you. And we'll have you back like in a year or so and see where you're at.
Yeah, follow up.
So, all right. With that being said, hey, make sure to, you're welcome. Glad to have you on. Make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Thanks.